Welcome to the Packaging Etc. podcast, where we will discuss all things packaging and some things not. We will hear from professionals across all areas of the industry: design, engineering, manufacturing, and many more. We will learn about packaging trends, new technologies, and cutting-edge innovations. This podcast is all about showcasing our favorite parts of the industry, the people, and giving them a platform to share their stories and their knowledge of packaging. Let's take this journey together. And now, your host, Matt Mulvey.
All right. Today I'm back with my special guest co-host, Kristen Shaner. Kristen, say hello.
Hello.
And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Jenn Smith, who is the director of, well, you know what? Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Because I looked at your title and it's a bit of a word salad and I don't want to fumble it. So please.
Is it? If it's a salad, it's a composed salad. I'm Jenn Smith, and I am the director of Food and Ag Innovation Programs at Cornell University's Center for Regional Economic Advancement.
I definitely would have tripped over that. 100%.
I can unpack it if you need me to.
Yeah, take a minute and just kind of, I would like people to have an understanding of who you are and what you do, et cetera, et cetera. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, so I work for Cornell University. I lead programs that come from a variety of different funders, but my biggest program is a New York State funded food and ag startup competition program. And I administer it on behalf of the state through Cornell, and it is for startups working anywhere in the food system, from the furthest upstream, soil health technologies, all the way down to a food item that you or I would pull in off a shelf in a grocery store. The idea being that by drawing innovative entrepreneurs, solutions to food systems challenges into upstate New York, we're making agriculture more stable as an economic driver in the region, which it's been forever. So I work in economic development. My area of special focus is food and ag, and I do it in the context of New York State-funded programs administered through Cornell University.
Makes sense. So Grow New York. Tell us a little bit about the organization, what the goal is.
Yeah. So Grow New York is this state-funded program that I've been talking about. We kind of convene the existing resources in the region: innovation, research, farms and food businesses, and we are using kind of the weight of those resources to draw new startups in. We run it as a business accelerator and competition. So you apply, we accept you, we put you through a 10-week remote accelerator where we help you connect into the capital, the operational, the human resources that are available here, strategic partners, that sort of thing. And then at the end of that 10-week period, you pitch how you can grow your business and grow the regional economy. At a live event, it's a summit where we bring together members of the ecosystem for, provocative conversations and some networking in addition to the pitches themselves. During the pitches, we identify a $1 million top prize winner, two $500,000, and four $250,000 prizes. So it's a big kitty, right? We're giving away $3 million a year. We're not giving it away, we're investing it. So we take an equity stake in exchange for this investment. And then we work with you to help you accomplish those goals over the next 12 months. We work with 20 startups a year, 7 win investments. Our hope is that the accelerator program has been rewarding enough that the 13 that don't take home investments are still in some way going to engage in the region. And we're not looking for startups to fully move into the region, because we know that where you get your mail and where your kids go to school is probably the product of a rational choice, and B, not necessarily an impact to your ability to make a difference in the region by bringing in solutions to common problems that we see in the food system, by creating jobs, by connecting with our research institutions, those kinds of things. So that's the program. And our applications are open now. They're open until May 15th, and we're looking for startups from anywhere in the world that are, formal entities, have a product or service that's ready to go, and that are looking for support to grow big.
So anyone around the globe can apply?
Anyone around the globe can apply. If you have a formal entity, right? If you're a corporation, if you're somebody who can take an investment, or your company can take an investment, and you have, I use this phrase a lot, you're more than a science experiment, right? You're a company that's ready to be in market, selling or giving whatever your business model is, your good, your service, out to people. But I have a number of different companies in our portfolio from Europe and Australia. We have a couple from Argentina. We are, the solutions to the problems we have here, a lot of the problems we have here are unique. A lot of them are pretty general, right? Everybody is figuring out how to cope with the climate crisis. And you see that show up in agriculture in particularly profound ways. And almost everybody is dealing with the challenges that labor provide. In the United States, we've got the challenges that labor provide, and we've got some immigration issues that compound that. So, technologies that make farming or processing farmed food or distributing it or storing it or getting it into the hands of consumers easier or more sustainable or more affordable, like those, I don't care if they're coming from the moon, as long as they are something that is viable, that's been validated, and that you're ready to kind of put that in market and go.
Okay. So working in manufacturing, obviously, the balance between automation and, we'll say, unskilled laborers is a constant in my business. I know, Kristen deals with it as well at Wexler, where, you may have operators banding product together at the end of a packaging line. Well, you're limited by the rate at which those operators can work, and those operators work a set shift, and they need breaks, and there are laws around all of that, and rightfully so. And by looking at adding automation, you are able to improve throughput, maybe reduce waste. But at the end of the day, you're costing someone their job. So it sounds like, food and ag, obviously, in your part of the world, in your part of the market, I should say, dealing with the same type of issues, right? Where you run out of, you have a lack of the human resource, and so companies are then forced to look into automation options.
That's right. There are social and cultural challenges that make it difficult for farms and food businesses to find labor or retain labor. And there's also, kind of growth opportunity limitations that can sometimes make it unappealing as a career path, although I think that also ties into some of that social and cultural. I think there's as much a lack of understanding about how you might be able to have a rewarding career working, entering as not a knowledge worker and entering as somebody who's doing manual labor, and that there is a path forward for you. And, and there's a need to recognize the margins that farms and food businesses are working on are whisper thin, right? So if there's an automation that can help ensure that we're getting the product that's made, as much of it as possible, to the consumer, rather than losing through waste, unintentional, natural, right? If we can optimize with computer visioning or AI some of these tasks, that's great. And part of the reason, this ties in, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but part of the reason that we're not seeing robotics take off quite as quickly as maybe 5 years ago we would have thought, given the ag tech kind of boom and investment that was happening in the late teens, early 20s, is we aren't the strawberry pickers. Everybody's trying to figure out the robotic strawberry picker, and the fact is nobody's come up with one that's as consistent or fast as the human who knows how to do this, right? And so, yeah, I'll stop there. I was going to go into a little bit of a tangent about and where packaging might integrate into that, right? Where that might be an advantage, that automation would have over the human laborer, is being able to integrate that packaging on site, so you're, again, losing less commercially viable product. I'm thinking here of strawberries, where if your automation equipment had the packaging itself and the packaging had integrated, materials that help to minimize the release of gases that are going to cause food to decay faster, and you were doing that all in one go, right? So that the strawberry was never left to the elements, meaning that this incredibly valuable commodity, right? Strawberries are again, high price point, low margins. If we could get more of them into market, everybody would win.
That's one of the things Matt and I were talking about yesterday in a totally different market, is the cost of goods, right? So what I notice sometimes is at Wexler, we work in a lot of different industries, and food and agriculture specifically is something that we're seeing our partners in Europe have a lot of success with. But here in the States, we're still kind of struggling to get that market share. And that's pretty standard. They have successes there, and then it'll slide across the pond, if you will. But it ultimately, a lot of times comes down to what is that automation going to do initially to the cost of goods. So we often use the word repurpose labor, right? So you take labor from X and you move it to Y. So you're not getting rid of those really. In this case, they are skilled because they look at a strawberry and they know exactly what that strawberry needs to look like, or what it shouldn't look like, right? Or when it's ready to be picked. They have that eye because they've been doing it for so long. And you can move them maybe to a blueberry or something. You can move them somewhere else. I'm thinking here in New Jersey, we have so many blueberry farms down here in southern New Jersey. But when you talk to a farmer or somebody in that space, the idea of investing in that piece of automation it's a reach for them, because it really is a big capital investment, unless you can show them soup to nuts, this big swing in where they're going to have a huge labor savings, or a huge, like you had said, the gas. That would be an awesome way to extend the shelf life or something like that. But I have noticed in my world specifically that seems to be a barrier of entry for automation. It's a big price point for these farmers to say yes to, when sometimes it's just easier to throw more labor at it. And if that's a little short-sighted, because you're looking at it from, maybe a year or 2 years, but everything's got to make sense financially, because like you said, I love the whisper thin. I wrote that down, actually. They're working on, the margins are so tiny. So it has to make sense, or else their business could go under due to a poor decision from a capital purchase.
Well, and I'm going to build on that. I agree with everything you said. And when, to call it short-sighted, I mean, maybe if you knew that the 5 years it was going to take you to make good on that investment were all going to be years where there wasn't a catastrophic mini burst quasi-tornado event that rips all of your, let's say it's a blueberry farm, right? That rips all of your shrubs out. So now you've invested in this equipment and you have no product to sell at the end of the year. And these things are not that unusual. And yes, there are insurance programs out there. There are specialty crop insurances out there, but it's just, I mean, when you think about technology and you think about iteration, right? most farms have one swing at it a year. That's pretty scary. It's actually quite strategic to say, I've got something that works okay. This fairly unproven technology that would put me potentially into a debt spiral, maybe not be the best strategic choice. Now, I'm a person who works in innovation. I want farmers to connect with tools that help relax some of the pressures that are on them. And I think there are ways to do that, but it really is. It's more complicated than just, this is new. It's worth the money. In the long run, it'll pay off, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk there.
Well,
So-
like you had said, the outside, sorry, Matt, the outside elements literally that you cannot control. If you, like you said, if you knew for the next 5 years that was going to run and you were going to get your money back, but if studies show that, once every 5 years or once every 3 years, you don't sell due to whatever, then it is. But you really do have to think about the other pieces of the puzzle before you say yes to something.
Yeah, so my EHS friends are going to love this next statement, but when you talk about automation, one of the biggest things that automation introduces is the elimination of the human repetitive motion, right? And how many injuries and lost time accidents and long-term disabilities come out of that repetitive motion. The downside of that is automation is very inflexible. Once you automate a process, you are very limited as to what that machine can and can't do. So as a farmer, I go out and spend, let's just say it's $500,000 on a brand new strawberry picker. And it's machine serial number 0001 off the production line. And this thing is the best. And it does everything I need it to do. But then all of a sudden I have to pivot because an act of God just came through and took out all my strawberry plants. Is that machine adaptable enough that I can repurpose it somewhere else, like Kristen said, where I can take human labor and say, all right, I'm going to reassign you. Now you're going to go over here. So I can imagine for the small, mid-size, privately owned farmer or farm system, that can be very daunting. Do I really want to lock up this much money into an asset that is only going to address a very specific need? And if, as my needs change, that asset becomes non-value added until I'm able to get back to the original intent of why I bought it.
Yep. And again, I am somebody who is pro innovation, and I do think a lot of these solutions we're talking about this field specialty crop example, and we could pivot to like butchering and meat packing, and I would be able to be a lot more positive about it. But yeah, when we're talking about field crops, we're talking about equipment that needs to have a high level of ruggedization and often needs repair. And is there going to be somebody? We all know from driving our own automobiles, it's very hard with my, like, I drive a Chevy Bolt. I love it. It's super fun. It's an electric vehicle. I can do a little light coding. I couldn't get in there to do it though. I wouldn't know how. And the mechanical accessibility of the world around us, is retreating. Even if it's just the hardware, are the farmers allowed to work on these automated solutions? If they're allowed to, are they able to? And if not, how long do they have to wait for someone to come and help them out?
Mm-hmm.
Which I actually think is if we were to approach this with a little more of a strategic perspective, right? Some of the workforce development opportunities I see are where that need for ruggedization and need for talent and knowledge around repair, both hardware and software, for these tools, that's an amazing job opportunity, right? So training people young to think about the technology that's on farms, and to me, it's quite a potentially I don't want to say egalitarian, but it's like forever and ever, it's pretty much been, unless you had some pretty deep resources to play around with back to the land. If you were in farming, it's because your family was in farming, right? That was your pathway. Therefore, if you were not in farming or you didn't grow up in a farming community, agriculture was not an option for you. And I think those barriers to careers in agriculture can be reduced through workforce training programs that acknowledge that there's untapped technology potential for things like automation.
Perfect example of that. I remember learning in a history class about how there was an entire market, a global market built around transportation by horse. And the explanation as to why the brownstones in New York City all have about 10 steps from the street to get to your front door, it was to get you away from the horse waste, right? So you had an entire business environment and market built around horses. So there were the veterinarians, there were the guys that were building the carriages, there were the guys that were cleaning up after them. And then all of a sudden the automobile was invented and that market disappeared. But what it did create then was it created new jobs, more technologically advanced, where now you have mechanics working on the cars, you have skilled laborers building the cars. So my previous statement about eliminating labor was probably not as accurate as what Kristen was saying, where it's now repurposing the labor and taking it from maybe an unskilled laborer to a skilled laborer, or just moving skilled labor from one bucket to another. So from that perspective, I fully get behind the automation. And that's really where I start to, as Kristen likes to say, geek out over finding ways to automate relatively manual processes. That's kind of my sweet spot.
I'm going to pull a Matt Mulvey and make a TV reference here. Have you ever watched this show, Clarkson's Farm?
No.
It's kind of silly. I don't, it's HBO or Netflix or something, and it's this really rich guy in the UK who
I've
bought a
heard
farm.
about this. Yes.
And it's very like cheeky UK humor. So, it's a good watch. It makes you giggle. And you watch him go through the not knowing anything about a farm. He's like, let's buy sheep, and then not knowing let's buy pigs. Let's make this soil, and he's got a couple younger kids. And this made me think of it because you talked about the barriers for entry from a career standpoint. And he's got a couple young kids that come and work for him, and they are so smart and they know so much, and they can like open the tractors and they're in there. And this guy's like, he knows nothing about nothing. He's a businessman, right? But I liked the show is fantastic, so you should watch it. But it was cool to see these younger kids, probably in their 20s, maybe early 30s, be really, really excited about farming and really, really excited about the industry and, planting a new crop or doing something unique to what they had done, but using the knowledge from a previous experience or something like that. Like, I thought that was pretty cool. And because Matt and I work a lot with Rutgers, and sort of in the same vein as what you're doing, really try to mentor some of these younger students that are moving into the workforce. And it's cool when you get to see their minds start to go, and you can watch the clicks and they start to get it. And you can see that on the show with some of these younger farmers. So that was totally a side tangent, but Matt always likes to pull in some pop culture and TV references, so I felt obligated to mention that.
I love that. I have heard about that show, and I should watch it. He's supposed to be quite funny, and yeah, anything that's going to kind of platform the idea that we think of farming as, if we're thinking about it at all, which frankly people should be thinking about it more, but we talk about it in terms of unskilled, manual, right? It's low wage. It is not unskilled. No. It is essential, and it is oftentimes, to go to what we were talking about before, it's kind of I don't know if there's probably a labor phrase for this, but it's like generalizable, right? It's not necessarily fully specialized in the same way that, we knowledge workers, desk workers get into really specific silos. When I think about the ingenuity and the practicality and the problem solving and the pivoting that go on every day in the field, it's hard for me to reconcile that with the notion of unskilled.
Yeah. But that's in manufacturing though too. Like you had mentioned, I have so many customers that started as a line worker and they never got a degree. Maybe they went to a technical school and got a certificate or something like that. And they worked a line and then they became a line supervisor and then they became a shift supervisor and now they run the plant and they know more about that plant than anybody because they've ran every line and they've opened up every machine and that's like to what you had said previously, where there is a trajectory of growth in manufacturing that I think sometimes people don't see, but you have to want to work, right? You have to want to be a sponge and you have to want to learn and find a really good mentor that you can latch on to. But I see it every day. Plant operators, general managers of major plants that never stepped foot in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's awesome. I love, I think that's just, it's a really cool story to be shared.
Right. It's, to call America a meritocracy is to be way too general, but sometimes you see flashes of it, right? Where people are able through hard work and showing up and being curious and to work their way through the system and move into positions of responsibility and solid compensation and yeah, when there are sectors of the economy where that's more likely to happen, and it's sectors that recognize that actual skill at doing the job matters far more than credentialization.
So I need to take a step back for a second, Jen, and I'm going to thank you for checking me on the unskilled laborer reference. Oh, to be completely honest with you,
I wasn't checking you.
I whether you meant to or not, I've been checked, and mea culpa, that term unskilled labor has been part of my vernacular my entire career, and came from. I'm not going to blame it on any one particular person because I don't recall, but it's just always kind of been there. But no, you're absolutely right. It's not a matter of skilled versus unskilled. There's a better term to be used there. And so as a self-improvement goal, I'm going to work on eliminating the term unskilled laborer from my vocabulary. So thank you for that.
Language is a living thing. And yeah, that was absolutely not to call you out. It was simply to reflect on that. And, you can't watch somebody, like, if you've ever been in the field trying to keep up with somebody who picks fruit for a living. Wow, that is a skill I don't have. Yeah.
Totally agree. So I would like to get back to the Grow New York. I guess we call it a competition, since there are winners. Would you kind of give us a rundown and maybe some recent winners, or some memorable competitors that maybe didn't win, and what stands out in your mind in recent history?
Sure. Well, I mean, I do want to talk about our winners, but I also want to be cognizant that some of your audience is really thinking about that sort of downstream packaging materials and the role that packaging plays in distribution, that kind of thing. I mean, our most recent $1 million investment is into a company called Brecklin. They're from New York. They have a biodegradable foam coating that their initial product, their go-to-market product, is it acts as insulation in frost events, and their first market is grapes. So they're doing a lot of work in Western New York and the Finger Lakes, right? We have a lot of grapes here. They're also doing some work in France. They're looking to do work on the West Coast too. So if you know that there's going to be a freeze event, you can go and spray this product. It's biodegradable and it lasts for 3 days. So that frost that otherwise would just totally decimate your crop is now salvageable. There are other inputs that could be put into the foam and the foam creation and distribution that is their technology. So other things to address different kinds of pests and pathogens. So that's pretty exciting. Over the years, we've had a few different companies come in that are working in more explicitly kind of packaging areas. We have this company, they're South Korean. They won $250,000 of investment funds from us back in 2020. That it was our virtual competition that year. It was our second competition. And they have a technology that extends shelf life and improves food safety by decomposing ethylene gas, as well as some molds, and so this can be worked into packaging to extend the shelf life of the avocados that are basically like coming on a slow boat up the coast of South America to get in, whatever port that they're going into, and then get taken by truck over land so that I can enjoy guacamole, at Wegmans kind of thing. That's pretty exciting, and I think it's especially great to hold them up because they are international. We provide a foothold for international companies in the Northeast. If they're looking for a North American entry, the program can be really helpful for that. They won one of our lower prize levels because they were still pretty early. We really liked the technology. We really liked their case for it. We really liked their team. We liked what they were doing. They had some trials in different countries in Europe and Asia, but we've just seen them grow over the past 6 years, and having that sort of steady growth from just past science experiment to company that's doing well is so exciting for us. We have a lot of different kinds of dairy technologies, and we've worked with finalists that are, I'm thinking here of a company called Heat Inverse. They have not won an investment from us, but they're a great part of our network and they're doing work. They have a cooling film that can be applied to any kind of material. And so when it's applied to the interior of trucks, it boosts their refrigeration capacity. It reverses heat absorption of the materials that the film is applied to. So, whether it's the tank that the milk is going into or the truck that is, driving the milk across New York State, it's a fantastic way to passively cool surfaces. So you're using less energy, you're reducing costs that way. Some pretty far out solutions. We had a company called SoFresh. Their technology is still out there, although they have closed the company. SoFresh has a different kind of film. It's a film that reduces the decay of baked goods. And, they were working with Bimbo to integrate the film into Bimbo's packaging of their baked products. So what normally has on your supermarket maybe a 2-week shelf life now has a 6-week shelf life. And it's, food grade and non-toxic, and, a terrific way. Food waste is an issue that I care a lot about, as is hunger, and being able to make sure that the food that we have is eaten by the people that are hungry. And so whatever technologies are going to make sure that we're making the most of what's grown, made, processed, and distributed makes sense to us.
Sounds like you've got a lot of exciting things going on with Grow New York, and just listening to you speak about it, and obviously I personally hear the passion coming through when you talk about this. It emboldens me. It makes me want to get involved somehow. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Involved. You're part of the
Yes.
conversation now.
Yes, we are.
No, we would love to have you at the summit this year. It's going to be in Rochester, it's November 12th and 13th. It's a Thursday and Friday. So, right now we're accepting applications. We'll pick the finalists, we'll work with them, and then they live pitch. And please, both of you, mark those dates. Come as our guest. We would love to have you come and check it out.
Thank you.
I love Rochester. It's one of my favorite little cities.
Ah, that's great to hear.
It really
Yes.
is. I'm not just saying that to promote New York, but
It's a gem.
it really is a fantastic, great little city with great shops and restaurants and all that good stuff. So
really great restaurants.
Yeah,
And-
really, exactly.
Matt, you asked about the companies we work with, and I'm even going to kind of plug a specific company that we haven't worked with that I've encountered over the years that I think is doing such exciting stuff. And I kind of intimated, I was thinking about it early in our conversation. It's a company called Marble, and it's meat packing, meat processing technology. And it's like which is such dangerous, difficult work, right? For the laborers, and also so high risk around food safety. And they're automating processing and packaging. It's that full integration that we were talking about. So, it doesn't remove the need for any human intervention at all, but it makes it safer and more consistent and eliminates a lot of potential fail points when you have a system that is safely cutting, packaging, putting into boxes that are, traceable, getting them efficiently into the right climate control, et cetera. I just think what they're doing is so super exciting. They're a little too big for our competition. Honestly, that's why we haven't worked with them, but they're still in startup mode. We work with early stage, right? Which means, as I said, like you got something there, you're ready to grow, but there's an implied valuation. I'm not a investment, expert. I run this fund, but I rely on the knowledge of my team. In particular, I've got advisors that are fund managers, and I know just enough to talk the talk. This company has raised so much money that our $1 million doesn't make sense for them.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, exactly. Nice problem to have is your company is worth more on paper than, $1 million makes sense for.
So you guys, what I'm hearing is you guys are the Shark Tank of food and agriculture in New York State is basically what you guys are. That's what I'm picturing in my head.
It's Yep. We don't have who's the mean guy? Kevin O'Connell.
Kevin O'Leary.
Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah.
To me, he's the guy from Marty Supreme. But anyways, yes, we are very much a Shark Tank.
Okay.
And our goal is we want to reduce barriers in the region, right? We want success to be not divided by county line. We want to recognize that the ag system doesn't recognize county lines or state lines, right? Like we need solutions. We want to work with these companies to make sure they're able to grow in a way that is sustainable and get these game-changing solutions into the hands of consumers, whether those consumers are farms or food packagers or you and me wanting the right kind of macro mix in our snack cracker, whatever it is. These are companies we believe in. All of the finalists are companies we believe in, and then the ones we invest in, like we're in it with them. We want to help them get where we know they can go.
Okay. We are getting close on time, but I am not letting you, I'm not wrapping up this episode without touching upon one thing that I read in your questionnaire response that I absolutely have to know. Apparently, your most valued professional skills were learned by tending bar, and I would like you to expound upon that, please.
Sure. Well, in many ways, my role is I'm a project manager. I am a coalition builder. I help develop big ideas and make them actionable. And all of that work rests on being able to meet people where they are and communicate clearly with them, right? And like your job as a bartender, yes, is to serve drinks, but it's also to put people at ease. It's to help people understand what they need when perhaps they don't even understand what they need. It's to create a safe environment for a productive event, right? And, in the case of a bar, it's like you're coming in, you want to have a good time. Maybe you're sad and you want to be elevated. Maybe you're celebrating and you want to feel lifted and toasted, right? Whatever it is, I need to understand that and help you accomplish it. And that is like, if I have a secret strength, it's that it's being able to kind of connect with people around what it is that they need and help them figure out how to get it, even if they don't exactly know how to ask for it.
That's great. I actually tended bar briefly. When I first graduated college, I needed to augment my salary. So I got a job as a part-time bartender at a country club here in New Jersey. And the perks were that I got to play the course every Monday, which was great. But it was also a lot of fun. And I enjoyed that, but quickly outgrew it. And I have a funny maraschino cherry story to tell, but not going to have time today. So we'll have to share that another time.
What a tease.
Teaser out there for anyone listening. I'll work that into a future episode.
I also bartended for a little bit at Applebee's, which, hot spot.
Yeah.
But everything you said is really true. I mean, you said it so eloquently and made bartenders around the world seem way more elevated than some of them are, but it really is true though. And one of the other things that we had talked about, I know we're up against time, but I just want to mention this, is you had said this before, and Matt and I are going to take it from you, is social capital. And I think being a bartender gives you the foundation to learn how to have social capital, right? You have your regulars that come in and you rapport with them. They bring friends in, you meet new people, and you kind of develop a team around you of people that become valuable. And when your regulars are there, it feels different when you're tending bar, when you know the guy at the corner. And I think that's a really cool way to explain that and how important that is, going in the rest of your career.
Yeah. Social capital, this idea that like we're building credit with other people, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that's a transferable skill anywhere.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it that all three of us spent time, the Brits would say, behind the stick.
Oh, is that the phrase?
Yeah, because you're mostly just pouring.
Yeah.
So time behind the stick.
All right. Final thoughts before we do wrap up. Jen, one more time, when are applications due?
Applications are due by May 15th at, I think it's 5 p.m. And it doesn't cost anything to apply, and we will give feedback to anything that is like a legitimate application that's not just some AI bot mess. We will let you know whether you're advancing or not, and if not, we're happy to share kind of feedback on why not. The idea is that startups, a couple of the most valuable things they have are, time and funding, right? And so we're inviting people to apply for this funding, and we want to be respectful of their time. And at least if they don't get selected, pay back that time for application by telling them what they could do next time and what we're looking for that we didn't see.
Okay.
And where can they apply, Jen? What's the website? Where's the
It's grow-ny.com, and we have so much information on our website. We also have regular information sessions over the course of the application window. So my colleague Sarah leads those, and it's live sort of overview of the program and Q&A, and you can book time with us to talk about your questions if they can't get answered in those info sessions. We want to make sure people are equipped with what they need in order to be able to put in a good application.
Well, I will make sure that website is also included in the transcript of this episode. So for anyone that is listening, You can head to the transcript if you didn't quite catch that website, grow-newyork.com. It will be in the transcript for your access.
I appreciate it.
So that being said, I do want to wrap up with a random trivia tidbit, and it does have to do with food packaging. Did a little bit of homework online. And were you aware that archaeologists have discovered ancient honeypots, approximately 3,000 years old, still intact, and the
Still
honey
food safe.
inside is still edible?
That's right. Isn't that so cool?
Yeah.
It's like the oldest food in the world. I just love that.
Did
Yeah.
it say where, Matt?
I want to say
do you know,
the
Jen?
article was the archaeologists were from Holland. I don't know if it was discovered in Holland. That wouldn't make
I feel
sense
like
to me.
it was like in a tomb in Egypt.
I
or
would think so.
something like
Yeah.
that,
So maybe
you know?
the archaeologists were from Holland. I'd have to go back and research that, but I focused more on the fact
Okay.
that it was 3,000-year-old honey. Now, granted, honey is a very shelf stable product, very low moisture content, high sugar content, so makes sense. But as long as those, and I would assume they were ceramic jars, but obviously the sealing technology must have been amazing for to survive 3,000 years. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Incredible.
Super
Incredible.
cool.
All right. Listen, Jen, thank you so much for your time today and sharing everything. And for the listeners out there, hopefully at least one of you out there is going to apply for the Grow New York competition. May 15th, you have a little bit of time left, so please get your applications in. Kristen, as always, a pleasure. Thank you so much. Both of you take care.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Packaging Etc. podcast. We hope you enjoyed the content and maybe learned something new. If you have ideas for future guests or topics, we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to send a connection request on LinkedIn or visit www.precisionengsolutions.com and use the contact form. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us once more on the next episode of the Packaging Etc. podcast. Until then,